introduce you the moderator of the panel of influencer campaigns, What to Expect, Rachel Zeilic. So, Rachel joined Clique. That's okay. Rachel joined Clique by way of Revolve, where she led influencer strategy and was the creative director of Majorel. Prior to Revolve, Rachel founded apparel brand Style Stalker, where she heavily relied on influencer marketing, partnering as early as 2008 with names such as Gala Gonzalez and Kiera Fragany. Rachel brings high-level talent relationships plus a merchandising and design background to her role as Associate VP of Talent for Clique.
Hi guys. Alright, now my time to introduce the very special guests today. First up, we have Becca Tilley, a Louisiana native who now lives in Los Angeles, where she works on her blog beccatilley.com, her YouTube channel, her podcast Scrubbing with Becca Tilley, and planning her next travel adventure. Hi Becca! Big round of applause! Becca quickly shot to fame on The Bachelor.
Yeah, that's true.
And then went back again.
And that's true too.
I went some more. I have so many questions on that, but today we're going to keep it all about influencer marketing. So, welcome, Becca.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ali Grant. Ali is ever the innovator. She founded Be Social to combine an exacting mix of traditional and digital. Since its inception, Be Social has been shaking things up for all the right reasons and with all the right connections. Yay! Welcome, Ali. Okay, next up we have Emily. Come up, Emily. You have to do what I did and stand here while I read out your accolades. And look, we're matching. We didn't plan this at all. Okay, Emily's the head of fashion, beauty, and lifestyle at AwesomenessTV, which sounds awesome. A leading destination for original programming serving global Gen Z audience. In her position, she oversees all content relating to fashion, beauty, lifestyle, as well as pop culture for AwesomenessTV's YouTube channel. So big welcome to Emily. I love that we have that, all of this rounded experience. Okay, and last but not least, we have Gigi. Gigi is the director of influencer marketing at Narrative, the subcultural agency specializing in influencer strategy and social media marketing campaigns. Notably, Gigi has led influencer campaigns and celebrity endorsement deals for McDonald's, Pernod Ricard, Avon, and General Motors. I mean, I don't think we could have more experience in the room than these ladies here. So a massive round of applause, please, to welcome them, and then let's get started. Okay, the first question, I think we're going to start on a high note, is will you guys share with me your dream influencer marketing campaigns?
Can I answer this one?
Yes.
This is actually perfect.
Yeah.
So, Ali is actually my manager, and so when I met Ali, we kind of went through a list of who would be your dream like brands to work with, and I think my top two were McDonald's and Dr. Pepper. And she thought I was gonna go with like a high fashion designer or something, but I went with something totally different. And I did McDonald's with Gigi.
Yeah.
So I have to rewrite my list because this past year I've marked off two of those things for me. So
Wow. Gigi, do you want to tell us your perspective of working on those campaigns?
Yeah, of course. So obviously Becca was very outspoken about her love for the brand, which we love. I think it's great to see influencers who are just passionate about, certain campaigns or partnerships, and Ali was just such a perfect fit for us. Her fans really trusted that she, of course with McDonald's we get some backlash of people potentially saying, you don't eat this food, and but Ali's just
Everyone eats McDonald's.
I know. What?
At the restaurant.
Becca! Oh my gosh. Becca, sorry. I'm looking at Ali. Becca. Becca's been such an amazing influencer for us and partner. We've gone to NASCAR events together. She helped us launch McDonald's Uber Eats McDelivery collection. So much. So Yeah, she's amazing.
And I can answer that too. Is this on?
Can you guys hear us okay? Yeah?
Yeah. I think for me, it's like as a talent manager, like just pairing a talent with a brand that's like super authentic and organic to them is like so exciting. It's just a win-win. Like the influencer's super excited, the brand's excited, their audience is like, wait, this is real, like I want to engage with it, and that to me is like my favorite campaign.
A dream. And maybe can you tell us about in those examples, either of you, what sort of connected you to those, to McDonald's, those brands?
I am from the South, and so we eat a lot of fast food in the South, and I just naturally, I would eat I eat McDonald's, and so I would post about it, and people would be like, why are you doing this? Are you being paid to do this? I'm like, no, I just like McDonald's, I like to talk about it. And so then I remember Allie reached out to me, and she was like, McDonald's wants to work with you, and I was like, I've died and gone to heaven, this is ideal, but it just, I very quickly learned that unless I was talking about something that I genuinely liked on Instagram or posting about something or working with certain brands, people didn't buy it if it didn't seem real. So I had to stick to, even if people are like, whatever, you don't eat that, or, I know that I do. Yeah. And so for me, it feels very genuine and exciting, and so yeah, it's fun that I'm still working with them. So
yeah,
really
we
cool.
just did something. Hopefully, we're going to do something next weekend together. So it's always evolving, and obviously, our clients are. Whenever we have Becca on one of our, influencer casting lists, they say we want her. They know she's a professional, and there's a lot of rules and regulations with such a big brand like that. So just message points and everything. So yeah.
How about you, Emily? Do you have a dream influencer marketing campaign?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to what you guys are saying. I would say from the content side, on Awesomeness's end, like the relatability and like that breaking that wall of something that's just so authentic is very key for our brand. And so we want to find influencers who really believe in the brand that we're trying to sell through, and just really finding that voice that makes sense for both parties is vital, especially for our audience. They can see through that BS in an instant. So we're really breaking that down.
Yeah. I feel like no matter how good you are, nothing compares to authenticity. When you can be the best salesperson in the world, but if you genuinely connect with the product, is what I'm kind of hearing.
And it's fun working with your friends too. We can go on trips together.
Invite me, guys.
It's way more fun that way.
Okay, cool. This next question is, I want to start with you, Gigi, and then I'd love to get your take on it. So I'd love you to run us through the steps of an influencer marketing campaign from beginning to end. Take us through how to approach an influencer, negotiating rates, execution, and then results, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. That's a big question. But when we win a new piece of business at our agency, we typically will meet with a brand and we'll talk about kind of their goals for the next either 6 months up to a year. We'll create like a tactical plan where we go in and we have, campaign ideas. We talk about, as a business, like really what they're trying to achieve, whether it's launching a new car or crispy nuggets, or there's always like such an amazing, cool marketing calendar. From there, we typically will I'll get with my team, we'll do some influencer casting. It's so important that for each campaign, you just make sure you're pairing your client with the right influencer that either is going to be kind of that brand halo builder, so it's more of like an awareness play, or is going to really help convert, which is just like selling products, selling cases, whatever it may be for whatever you're trying to sell. Let's see, from there, how do we, I'm lucky enough that I've been in this industry for a while, so I kind of have my roster of influencers that I work with. Mainly, if I don't have a list that I can kind of tap, I'll go on Instagram and I'll look up the brand or look up kind of the type of lifestyle of someone that we would want to work with. We find their contacts. I work obviously with a lot of talent managers. CAA now represents tons of digital influencers. WME, you can go out to them, you can ask for their roster and just even see, take a look and ask obviously for the demographics so that you can really understand and show your client a full background of who this influencer is. I think that's really important. I think clients and brands are really wanting that a lot more now.
Perfect. Execution?
Execution. So just, we write them an email, we give them kind of an idea about the campaign and why we think they would be a fit. I always like to put a little anecdote. So, you know, if it's a liquor brand or something, Tequila Avion's one of my clients, I'll say, I saw you were on a trip and you were enjoying tequila. We love that. Like, we'd love for you to work with us. And that always helps that it's not so random and they already kind of feel a connection to it.
Amazing. And lastly, could you give us a little insight into reporting on the campaign once it's all done and dusted?
Yeah, that's a big one too. It depends on the client, but you know, we really go through impressions. We look, you know, if we're using a bit.ly link, which is just a link that can track first swipe ups to show how many people visit a microsite. Promo codes, those are some things that are super important when you're really trying to convert for your clients. You can really track that back. You can look at Google Analytics. You can look at, if you're, you know, trying to bring awareness for the brand, I always, before a campaign, look at our Instagram and see how many followers the brand has and then be able to report on that after the campaign as well. There's so many great services you can use, but I think Google Analytics is a really good one.
And free too, right?
Free, yes.
Amazing. Ali, since you're on the other side, I was wondering if you could give us your perspective on the process sort of from the other angle. I mean, starting with how to approach an influencer or their manager. Do you have any best practices there?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? Like, Gigi will email me and be like, hey, we're doing this campaign with McDonald's. Like, here's the premise of it. We want Becca Tilley or we want whoever. This is how much money we have. Like, would she be interested? And sometimes we'll like pop on a phone call, like talk to me about it, like why is the budget low? Can we get more? Like, can we do less for more money? You know, those types of things. And then we'll basically, and then we'll, you know, get to an agreement. We'll be like, okay, cool, like the talent's interested, we're ready to go. We'll go in contract phase. You know, usually like back and forth with like some red lines, things we're looking at are like usage of the content, like how long does Becca have to like go and do this event? Is it an hour, 2 hours? How many Instagram posts, how many stories? Really looking at like all the deliverables and making sure we're aligned. And then from there, it's like my job to take it to the talent and like make sure they execute and make sure they do a good job. So it's like a lot of like wrangling and following up and like, here's your shoot date, like make sure you do this, and just a lot of back and forth on getting that done. And then we deliver the assets to you. She would get it approved by McDonald's. And then, you know, Becca would post and we'd be good. And then we'd send through like all the analytics and stats and then get paid for it.
Done.
Yeah,
amazing.
Done. You should to say like what you know, how you feel on the other end.
Well, I mean, it's like they do the hard work of like the things that I don't want to do. That's why I have her. And then she kind of brings it back to me. And you know, I think it's been different with McDonald's because it's kind of like, it's McDonald's, you love McDonald's, like let's do it. Like, but because it's such a huge brand and such a huge name, there are so many specifics of when I send it for approval, it's very like to the point. So I have to be very careful. Whereas some brands, it's a little more like, oh, do it in your own voice, which they still say do it in your own voice, but there's very like specifics that should be a part because it's such a massive company. So yeah, I have the whole Be Social team helping me out most of the time, especially in these big campaigns, because it's like we want to do it right. We want to work with them in the future. So it's like very specific on that we're doing it the way that they want it to be done.
Are there any, from your perspective, are there any, like, again, either of you best practices, like things that brands do that maybe confuse you or things that brands do that make things clear and make you want to over deliver? Just keeping in mind the audience, we're all on the brand side, so I think everyone would love to know like how we can work best in that. Yeah,
I mean, I think like we'll get brands approaching us and be like, yeah, like we want her to do it in her own voice, but then at the end of the day we'll like submit something that's like true to Becca and they're like, no, we don't approve that. And we're like, well, you said do it in her own voice.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, and I think it's like a lot of education for the brands. Like, you're picking an influencer, you want to work with them for a reason and a purpose, like use that purpose, right? Like you like them for whatever reason it was. So I think that's a big fault, like using someone and like making them be someone they're not, you know? Yeah.
It doesn't translate at all.
I think as a brand too, and whether it's a big brand like McDonald's or even a small brand, if anyone has a small startup and they want to work with influencers, it's really important to have a content brief that you create that has an overview of the campaign. It has all the deliverables laid out that's in the contract that you already have pre-negotiated with the influencer. It has all the hashtags and the handles, and just have it really clear. Even I always put like suggested captions, and then we'll say like, please put it in your voice. But when you give a suggested caption, at least they can kind of reference that, and then they always know they can go back to it. So creating that content brief and even providing some image examples of what you want the campaign to look like is always super helpful, I think, too, whether it's a big brand or a small brand.
Amazing. Anything you have to add to it, Em?
The content side for video is a little bit different for us, especially like on Awesomeness. We have show formats, like series that we do constantly. So getting a brand to integrate into those series can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. One thing that we've seen a lot of success with, especially on socials, is coming up with what we call formats for Insta stories of like a choose your own adventure format, or things that are just easy that our audience organically loves, and then plugging brands into them is so much easier than just creating like, here's a brand thing, and like then our audience just clicks right through it because they don't want to watch it. So really establishing like a show or a format or something with their favorite talent is just huge for us.
Amazing. Okay, now we're going to launch into the nitty-gritty of things, into something I'm sure we're all in the room, we're all wondering. What rates are considered normal for the different influencer tiers? We'll start there. Who wants to, I'll let you guys choose who'll take it.
I like have a formula kind of, and obviously the scale's like way like all over the place, but like I think I always say for every 10,000 followers it'd be like $100 you charge. So if you had 1 million followers on a certain platform, you could charge anywhere from like $10,000 to $15,000 for a single piece of content. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And then in terms of just like the amount of service days too, this kind of goes back to like the celebrity days when you are hiring a celebrity to come and do media interviews, and obviously that takes a lot more time. Not that building content doesn't, but depending on how long the service day is, if they have to travel expenses, that's always something you have to integrate into your budgets as well.
Okay, cool. I like that rule. It seems pretty easy to follow, and like
so
and
gray
it goes up
though,
and down.
and like if someone doesn't have like management or representation, they could be charging like $200 and not even know they could be. You know what I mean?
That was me before I met Allie. I'm like, oh, you'll send me free stuff? Okay. Cool.
It's all over the place, and obviously people are like very inflated, and it's kind of crazy.
And do you guys want to talk about maybe like usage as well? That kind of affects rates in terms of like where the content's going to appear.
Yeah, and I think that's something like a lot of people don't understand too much, but a lot of what goes into the rates, like a model, is like the usage of the content. So it's one thing for her to post on Instagram, it's another thing to take a photo and the brand wants to use it on their website and their email marketing or boosting ads or like signage outside. So those are things that you can charge extra for. And as a brand, you want to like negotiate like a package. Like I want an Instagram, I want to use it in my email campaigns, and I want to use it on my website for X amount of time. So all of that is like incremental fees.
And I would probably add, just from my experience on the, sometimes you see as a brand, you ask for usage, like worldwide usage in perpetuity, just because you think you might want to use it. But I always say, like, you don't buy things at the grocery store you're not going to use. So like, just pay for what you're going to use, right? So you're not paying extra.
And you can always kind of, I think, discuss after the fact too, if, for example, an influencer that you worked with created this really amazing piece of content and you want to utilize it for your socials, you want to whitelist it or boost it, like Ali was saying, you can talk about potentially negotiating a fee to use it outside of the original campaign.
And then what ROI can you expect when you do an influencer campaign? Again, I'll let you guys choose.
I mean, I think it depends. I think it depends on, like I kind of mentioned before, I think it's hard to put an ROI a lot of times on when you're really just building up a brand and you want to have these influencers or celebrities that you hire to really bring the brand to life. So if we're utilizing someone like Becca, you know, you would know that she is really she just is very like charismatic and has a great like bubbly personality, and so we probably wouldn't put her, I don't know, like on a campaign that wouldn't really be her vibe or her style. So
yeah, I mean, I think it all depends, right? So like sometimes the ask is, we want you to do a story with a swipe up with like a trackable link. So then I think the brand is looking for how many clicks did that get? Like how many sales did we get from that? So that's one thing. And then other times brands are like, we just want her to tag and say, follow our account. And then they're looking for followers. Other times people or brands are just looking for content. Like they want something to regram. So it's like all over the board.
Yeah.
So depending on what their goals are,
Yeah.
that's how you track
Yeah,
the
and we
ROI.
really try and give them the data they want, right? Like we're like screenshotting her analytics from Instagram, from Google Analytics, from her YouTube account, like all of that stuff we're delivering and saying, here, this is what happened, digest it how you want.
Cool. Emily, have you worked with influencers in content creation?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you could sort of give us some insight on like the content perspective, like how does it work when you do collaborations to create content together? What kind of ROI do you see there?
Yeah, it's very dependent on the brand, especially like what are their goals. I would say one of our biggest goals is just brand recognition. That's something we see a lot with different brands. Most recently, we did something with Sephora, and we did a whole makeup show around them. And our makeup room was stocked with all Sephora products. So the show concept was a makeup, beauty competition show where two influencers are going head to head to create the best makeup look using all Sephora content. And that was a show that our audience just really wanted to see on our channel anyway. So plugging in influencers that they liked, that was just like an added bonus for us, really. So that was a really, really cool mix of all of our favorite worlds for our audience and just taking it to the next level.
Hey, I would love to know what type of influencer campaigns do you think are the most successful? So whether that be an ambassadorship, a one-off post, a long-term relationship, event appearances, social only. Again, obviously there's different goals of the clients, but I'd love, even if you want to give some real life examples of things you think have been successful.
I mean, I think we can look at the Revolve model too. I think they do it so well, and they really own this like experience aspect. I think we kind of call it flooding the feed, where you get a bunch of influencers in the same place and they're posting about like typically around the same thing or the same campaign, whether it's clothing or whatever it may be. And I think when you have influencers kind of from all walks of life, so in the tech space, in the fashion space, the beauty space, and just it's really like flooding your feed and everyone's seeing it, and then you have an event and so people will see it on Instagram and then they hear about this really cool event happening and then they go and then they get to really experience the brand in person. So I think all those touch points are super important. Obviously those type of campaigns are very expensive and there's a lot of budget behind a lot of those, but I think if you can look at it as just a 360 approach where you're touching experiential, even having some media backed behind it, the influencer campaign, and then I don't know, anything else I'm missing?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think when it's like a story, like, and there's like you said, like 360. So last week we went to New York with DoorDash, and they were partnering with Feeding America, and there was like this beautiful mural in Brooklyn, and Becca was doing a meet and greet, and I felt like that story was just like, it worked, right? Like she had the meet and greet, we had press interviews, we had her do stories and an Instagram post, and then there's this mural, and like it just like all worked together, and it felt just like you saw it on her feed, you saw it it just was everywhere kind of thing. And it felt, obviously, again, like she loves delivery, so like that worked for her again. So it was organic. I don't know, so stuff like that. And then she went to a NASCAR event. I don't even know what you call that, with McDonald's, a race of sorts, with McDonald's, and that was a really cool story too, right? Like it brought it all together. But then, like Revolve does that great, right? Like they're doing all these events and they're going to the Bahamas or wherever. But I think those are the things that work the best, and people like that.
I also really like when there's a long-term relationship with an influencer and a brand. Like I keep thinking about like Chrissy Teigen, who is amazing, but like her Becca partnership is really interesting to watch because she's like so integrated into that brand now. Yeah. And so seeing how she's, our audience trusts her, they love her, and they want to know what she likes. But that's basically all she talks about. And I think it's just really organic to her brand, and it makes me want to buy Becca because I want to be Chrissy Teigen, and I love that.
Just as like a consumer, when you're able to see an influencer and then you can really like put them together, like you're saying, with a brand, and you associate them with that brand, I think that's like when you see a campaign being successful. Like I love when random people will say, oh my gosh, like we worked with Helen Owen, who's this massive influencer for the tequila brand I work with, and they knew about the tequila because of her. And so to me, like that feels super successful. And we did the 3-month partnership, and so it was multiple touch points with her, and her followers got to see it, a couple times on her feed.
Kind of what I'm hearing is obviously learning from these people with bigger budgets, even scaling that back. The important things are timing, so trying to concentrate a lot of your activity in one time frame to get as much presence on the feed as possible. And then storytelling, to your point, is using that 360 and your choice of influencers to really tell the story of the brand, not just like a one-off.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
And I think like the next phase of influencer is like taking influencers and then like really like making them part of your brand. Like maybe that's a capsule collection they launch or something like that. And like those are the types of things we're working on now. She's launching a swimwear line or like a capsule collection with a swimwear line. I feel like stuff like that is kind of like the next phase of influencer marketing.
How can influencers turn one-off partnerships into those bigger deals and ambassadorships? Like, what are some guidelines? And then for you guys on the brand side, what should they be looking for?
Well, I think from my perspective, like when a brand comes and they send a brief and what they're looking for, to do it almost like over exceed their expectations of what they're looking for, and be like very compliant and what, like, you're working with them, they came to you, you're trying to please them, they're trying to please you. Like having a good relationship and making sure that everyone's happy in it, I think is really important, because if the brand's not happy or you're not happy, it's not going to work and no one's going to want to do it again. So I think as long as there's the communication between it, I think it's very important.
I'm definitely obviously like talent first, like I'm managing Becca and like she's who I'm thinking about. But at the end of the day, like if the brand's not happy, like she's not gonna get more work. So it's like this like juggling act and like making sure Gigi's happy, McDonald's is happy, whatever brand we're working with. I think that's like what I try to like nail into the talent. It's like, make sure this is delivered on time, make sure you do a really good job. This space is so competitive and there's a million people who wanna work with McDonald's or whoever.
And on the brand side, I think you have to be a champion for your client, obviously, but also you're working with these influencers, and so you kind of have to be delicate in a sense too of how you work with them, and you don't want to push them, and if you have a set amount of deliverables and expectations, you can't really assume that they're going to go over. Like Becca said, if she does do that extra Instagram story or maybe post again the next weekend on Instagram stories, next time we have a campaign, she's going to be the first one that we go to, because the brand's going to she's going to be top of mind for the brand.
Cool. And Emily, do you work with partners on a recurring basis? And could you give any tips on, how to solidify those longer term partnerships?
Yeah, definitely. One of our longer brand partnerships is with Hollister, which is a big brand for us right now, especially we always have like a recurring summer house with them and all that kind of stuff. On the talent side, I think like the authenticity, like what you were saying, like making sure it like really fits the talent and like they want to do it and it's like their real brand. It's so hard for an influencer to fake it. They can't do that. They're a real person. And so like really remembering that and like working with the brand to understand that is so important. And we see a lot of success with the Hollister campaign, and like they keep coming back for our same influencers because they know who speaks to the brand the best.
Cool. What projects are you guys working on right now or have coming up soon? This is fun. We'll start with you. You mentioned swim.
I'm partnering with a swimwear line to have my own capsule collection, and then I also have a podcast that I love. I'm very involved in with my best friend Tanya. It's called Scrubbing In with Becca, Tilley, and Tanya Rad, an ode to my Grey's Anatomy obsession. And then there's just constant like these types of partnerships. It's really fun because obviously the long-term stuff is very great and it feels good to like know like, oh, I have this long-term deal with a company or a brand, but these experiences that I'm getting to do, like with DoorDash last week, it was really cool to be a part of something where it was a charitable thing and I was getting to give back, and it was a trip, and there was an experience all together. So I'm just looking to do more of that and just building YouTube, and there's so many lanes you can focus on. So it's been really fun.
Ali, what about Be Social? What's coming up?
Yeah, I mean, signing more talent, doing more brand deals, doing more work, a lot of fun stuff. But I think for me, like something I'm really excited about is building brands with like the talent that I work with and represent. And we have some exciting things in the works that we'll be launching in 2019. So that's kind of my exciting thing right now.
Super cool. Emily?
Yeah, so we were very recently acquired by Viacom, which is a really exciting thing for Awesomeness to figure out our partnership within that company, and then always just figuring out what kind of content our audience wants to see next. Gen Z changes every day, their minds, so just figuring out like what's next for them is going to be really fun, so stay tuned.
Yeah, we just won a couple new pieces of business that are really exciting for the agency. So we're working with Smile Direct, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, doing all their influencer partnerships. We're working with Drybar. I went this morning. I get free Drybar now. That's very exciting. What else? Yeah, it's interesting. You know, we have a media arm of our agency as well, and experiential, and we've been creating proposals for media, influencer, and experiential, and now nowadays everyone just wants influencers. So I'm growing my team. I just hired 2 more people, so it's really exciting.
Super cool. I'm gonna watch this space because I feel like we've got a powerhouse right here. Cool. So I want to leave enough time for questions and answers because I think that's so special for you guys to be able to pick the lovely minds of these ladies. So who has a question? I'm just gonna run around with the mic. Look. Hi.
Hi guys, my name is Junie. I work with the brand, and I want to say thank you so much for talking a little bit about rates, because that's kind of been, sometimes you get girls with very similar analytics and thousands of dollars of difference. And now usage is becoming a similar thing. Sometimes they're like, yeah, unlimited, whatever, and then sometimes it's very specific. And going back to your grocery store analogy, sometimes with these content and imagery, you kind of want it to be like flour. You always have it in case something happens or the image gets repicked up and you want to be able to use it on a billboard or marketing material. So how would you go about that unlimited usage, but no guarantees, but always crediting, you know, the influencer if you do use it for these different kinds of materials without, you know, being disrespectful in any way of like, you know, their imagery and using it, you know, a year later or anything like that?
So you're saying if like you got in a contract with someone who like didn't care about the usage?
Well, either or. Like, I feel like it's better to be safe than sorry. So we try to get like unlimited usage for our images in case we want to use them in marketing materials or things like that. But I've been finding more and more that that's really hard to get, and people don't always want to do that, which totally makes sense. So how would you go about like a possibility of using it down the line? Is that using just like keeping an open relationship?
Yeah. Well, if someone signed a contract with like full usage, there you go. You're good to go. I wouldn't feel bad about using it. They signed it. And then I would just maybe put a clause in the contract that says like, should we want to use this, the rate will be X, and you guys agree upon it, and you gotta go back to that person when you want to use it for that purpose.
Thank you.
If that answered it.
Cool. Next question. No, come on, don't be shy.
Thank you. I have a question from a brand perspective. If a brand wants to contact an influencer but is not represented by an agency, should we expect to get a response? Or do you feel like the trend now is that influencers will only respond if they're represented by an agency? Thank you.
I mean, I think they should. I think it obviously depends on the email that you're sharing. It's really important. I always put in the headline, if it's a paid partnership, I'll put paid partnership, and then I'll put the name of the brand. That kind of like pops. I'm sure they are inundated with emails all the time. But yeah, I think if they're interested, they'll respond. I think if you provide a lot of context about what the partnership is and what it entails, I always like to try to maybe hop on a quick call. If they're not represented, it's really easy to get them on a call and just kind of like chat through the campaign. But just, I don't know, I just think of them as people. Like, they're running their businesses, they're humans, you know, I just try to interact with them like that, and then really help give them an idea about the campaign and what you want out of it.
And also like catch them on the platform that they're on. Like a lot of these girls have become bloggers and they maybe aren't on email all the time. Like DM them, right? Like that's where they're at. So try a different channel.
Maybe Becca as well, you could give some insight into like when you weren't represented, the types of maybe emails or what that you would have responded to and the ones that you maybe ignored.
Do I just be honest right now?
Yeah.
So I had met, I was friends with a blogger before I was represented by Allie, and she told me, she's like, you need to make an email account and then you act like you have a manager and respond as the manager.
as myself. Like, I was myself, but I had a manager name, and that's who she was. She was a little more cutthroat than me because I didn't know how to negotiate anything. And so I like didn't know what. I feel so vulnerable right now. And so when I started talking to Allie, and she was like, well, what were you doing before this? I'm like, do I tell her or do I just...
What was your manager name? What was your
Her name was Veronica. So Allie like really elevated everything for me in that sense, but I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I would just be like, oh, I need to pay rent this month. I'll just say like, I'm gonna charge this amount. You know, there was no like rhyme or reason. I was like, all right, it's extra money. So Allie has helped me immensely.
Cool. I know that's helpful. Hi. We've got a helper. She's going to help with the mic. There we go. Well, I was quite enjoying my room.
Gigi, a question for you. I have been struggling with the fact that I'm launching a business, but I don't know how to go about what's a good fit. I already have a business and I'm growing into another spectrum of it. And it's kind of hard for me to figure out how I can get tech support versus social media support versus like, where do I go, what do I do? And I'm ready to do it in a bigger way, not just grow slowly. So is that something like you break down and you customize something that's specific for my business?
Yeah, definitely. So you would come in and kind of tell us your objectives and your goals as a brand, and then we would create a proposal that would have, like I'd mentioned, and it doesn't sound like it's media, but we can add in some experiential stuff, we can add in micro-influencer campaigns, we can add, you know, even if it's unpaid influencer campaigns, we can always do outreach for stuff like that. We charge on a scale in terms of just an agency fee, and then we would staff accordingly, so we always have, you know, some of the women and men in our company who are really the lifestyle sector or the health and wellness or the fashion sector or wherever that may be. So we would really tailor our proposal for whatever your needs and goals were. So
mine in particular is online video, and it's going to be an online academy, and I do a lot of public speaking as far as news media and stuff. So I want to be able to incorporate it in, but have it be represented what, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to narrow it down and focus and really target who I want, and that's where I'm struggling. I mean, it's like I feel like I'm not able to really get there.
yeah, well, I'll give you my email and then we can chat after.
How important are like affiliate links and commission to influencer partnerships, and do you account for that separately from your contracts? It's technically like you'd be taking that commission for yourself versus as part of the deal, or is flat fee kind of more of an important thing for an influencer?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. So when she brings something to me, if there is, sometimes she'll come to me and she'll be like, this is a flat fee, or we can do it this way where you can make a commission, and this is what they think that you might get from the commission, but then, or we can do the flat fee where you know you're getting this amount. I sometimes struggle, and because the what could happen does sound really good, but it's not guaranteed. So a lot of times I feel like I lean more towards a flat fee, just because it's like, okay, I know I'm getting this much, and the brand gets this much on top of, you know, for what I'm doing. So it takes a little bit of the pressure off me, if that makes sense, because I do think about that. I'm like, am I doing a good job for this brand? Like, are they happy with what I'm doing? And it's like once I get my part, then it's like I can focus on making sure that they're getting hopefully what they expected to get out of it. But you can probably speak to that too.
Yeah, I think you answered it well. I think that's like what a lot of like smaller brands try and do, is say like, we'll give you an affiliate commission, or like we're on reward style or whatever. I mean, I think it works. I think that's a good approach. I do think it's more so like the micro influencers are going to be okay with that. Like the larger ones are just, it's not worth it to them, or whatever it might be. So just kind of based on what the brand is and how you approach them. But definitely a good tactic if like that's, you know, the only budget you have right now.
I would add to that, probably in my experience, I would say most influencers I've worked with are in your camp where they're not super motivated. And Gigi, maybe you can talk to this. I find most influencers are not super motivated by a commission. It's more about a flat fee.
Yeah, I agree. They want the money, honey.
well, you have this moment where you're like, I feel like I could really sell this. I feel like it could do well, but what if it doesn't? You know, what if they're like, why?
Do you have like a sense though of what things sell better for you, and do you communicate that with the brands? Just on that note.
I think so. I mean, I think we know what does well for me and what people respond to mostly. Like, people really respond to swimwear for me. You know, it's like a huge, like we had a meeting at Instagram the other day, and we learned that was like a huge, we had no idea, but like a huge draw that people love swimwear and are very interested in it. So I think it's really seeing, you kind of know, like based on what people are commenting on, what people are responding to your DMs about, like what they're interested in. It's very obvious to tell depending on what you post. So
and like looking at your demographics, like she has like 95% female following between 25 and 30. So it's like, okay, you know, what is a millennial female like? Figuring out from there.
Hi ladies. I had a question leading kind of off of what you just said in terms of like what niches are you focusing with brands in terms of POC and niches specific to age. I'm an influencer, I'm reinventing 50s, and so my demographic is really like from 45 to about 58, and it's a hugely emerging market. It has a lot of money to spend, but I'm interested in knowing whether the big brands are really focusing on that, and again, people of color.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially with, I'm using McDonald's as an example for everything, I'm sorry, but I spend a lot of my time working on these campaigns. You know, we always have to make sure all of our campaigns are multicultural. So when we present influencers in terms of, you know, the age demographic is typically, they'll give that to us of who they're trying to target. But when we present lists, we always make sure full spectrum. We, you know, for Smile Direct, they're looking for beautiful women in your age range. I think it's an amazing market that, like you said, there's a lot of opportunity there. I think it just depends on the brands. A lot of these older brands, not like older age, but brands that have been around for a longer time are now coming into influencer marketing. They're understanding how important it is. So I think as we see that, we'll see a big growth in needing influencers in that demographic.
We have time for maybe one or two more questions. Sorry. Yeah.
I have the mic back here. I don't know if it's mic.
Yeah, we can hear you. I just can't see you. Oh, there you are. There you are.
Sorry. So I have two questions as an influencer. So the first one is, are brands looking at the scope of influence, or is it just like strictly Instagram these days? Because, for example, I could be considered a micro-influencer with my Instagram following, but then if you take into account like the blog, which has X amount of visitors per month, and then YouTube and etc., like does that count? And then also, if a brand comes to you with a number or an amount that's maybe not within your actual rate, what's a professional way to open up negotiations? Are those kind of loaded?
Yeah, on the negotiation side, like if a brand is coming to you and it's not your rate, go back to them. Like think of a strategy or an idea to get the rate you want. You know, maybe it's like, well, I'm going to give you 3 extra photos, or this is the quality of my content, or show them your analytics. Like basically show your worth. And it's not rude, and it's totally okay to push back and, you know, express that. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely do that. And then in terms of like your full reach, I think that's like how you portray yourself in your media kit. Like you might be, you know, micro influencer on Instagram, but your blog is killing it. So it's like put that forward, put all the stats on that. And brands are looking for everything. I mean, a blog post, there's like SEO, there's like affiliate links you can do. Instagram's really limited in what you can do. So showing that and like coming up with a plan on like, hey, we can do a blog post and these are the kind of metrics and activities that we can do on it. But yeah, I mean, to answer it, brands are looking for YouTube, for Twitter, for Facebook, for blogs, for, you know, appearances. So it's not just on Instagram.
Hi, so bouncing off of that question, but from the brand's perspective, what do you do in the situation that, you know, you're negotiating, you've offered the rate, and the influencer comes back with their rate is 10 times higher, and, you know, how do you just go about that?
So I typically have my clients approve a long list. So we'll break it out to tier A, tier B, and tier C. And so I'll say, with the budget, we can probably get 3 to 4 in this range. We can get 5 to 6 in tier B, and then we can get 10 to 12 micro influencers. So I always have them approve a larger list because it just takes too much time to go back and forth with the client and get them to approve the next person if one person passes. And so then the ball is really in your court to understand, like, who am I going to go out to first? Also knowing the amount of impressions, right? So like, you know, you have a really great relationship with someone. They might not have as many followers, but you know that you can get them to do some additional posts. And then when you're able to report, your reporting will go up, the numbers will be higher. So I think just having a long list of approved influencers that you can kind of go to, because if they say no, they say no, and then hope to maybe work with them on another campaign.
Cool, I think we have time for one more question. It's gonna be lucky last.
I wondered if you have any recommendations for someone who's starting a company and obviously don't have a lot of money and probably can't even go through an agency but we're trying to do influencer campaigns. Like, what should I pay attention to, or how do I identify who has potential to work with? Thank you.
Sure. So, at Awesomeness, especially when we were a smaller company a couple years ago, we didn't have money to spend on influencers, especially. And we were finding micro-influencers who we really thought could be great and we saw a lot of potential in, and then we grew them. As we grew, they grew. And so now, you know, they're some of our biggest talent. They have, like, you know, multi-million reach at this point. Just really establishing that relationship from someone who is so small, but like wanting to create a partnership together. You're building their brand, you're building your brand, but you're also building loyalty with that person who eventually, if you think they'll be a great influencer, that relationship is so necessary.
I felt that there was like one more hand that was up just then. Yeah. Should we just do a sneaky last one?
So sneaky.
I feel that.
I was just wondering if it's also beneficial in how you can work into the rate package. A brand, for instance, I work with a brand and we have a very large following ourselves, and is that something that like an influencer is interested too, is saying like, look, we want you to create content and we love your work, but we also will repost you, and that will help you grow as well, and if that can help negotiate the rate at a lower cost.
Yeah, I mean, I see that all the time. Like with massive brands that have like 1 million followers or 500,000 followers. You know, like a Revolve or a Sephora or, bless you. I mean, yeah, totally, right? Like you're giving the influencer exposure at the same time. So absolutely, especially if that influencer has a smaller following than you do.
Well, thank you guys so much. I feel like that was really helpful.